Good evening and welcome to All for United. On the end of what is maybe a bit of a frustrating week, two games we maybe should have done a little bit better in, but international break is over and we are back. It's only me and Ben at the minute. Hopefully, Daz shortly. But we'll get into both of the games, get into all the rumours, all the little United bits of news that have gone on throughout the week. Ben, how are we doing?
Good, yeah, very good. Glad the international break's over. It felt like a very, very long one.
Very long 2 weeks.
But yeah, good to be back.
Yeah, international break's always a little bit of a struggle, isn't it? But it has been Derby Day. It has been Derby Day. Yeah, I think it's been a frustrating one, but we're going to get into it. The lineups, Ben. What did you make of it? Would you have maybe played Shaw? Would you have put Mount in? Was you happy with how he lined it up?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was overly disgruntled or anything that he did with the team. I did have a sneaky feeling that Mason Mount might have played. Luke Shaw, I think, isn't close enough to fitness, which whether he's going to return properly before the end of the season, we don't know. But yeah, it felt like that was kind of the only team we could go with, barring maybe Mason Mount in there or Xerxes. But I felt like Højlund probably was the right decision to start the game and then bring Xerxes in. Yeah,
do you think he's maybe with Shaw and Mount? Do you think he's got maybe one eye on that Lyon game? Is that more important than the derby at this stage?
Yeah, I think for our season it's definitely more important, and he'd probably want them to play some part, whether in the first leg and definitely be involved in that second leg, just to have options off the bench more so, because I think in a couple of games this season we've seen, especially in the last 2-3 months, where we can't really make a change, and if we are making a change it's like an Obi coming on who you can't really rely on at his age, whereas if you've got a Mason Mount coming on and a Xerxes and a Luke Shaw, that's quite a fundamental shift and a bit more experience.
Yeah, I mean, the squad automatically looks better, doesn't it? With Mount on the bench, Shaw on the bench. As you say, it gives a lot more experience. So the first half, I thought we kept City at arm's length. Is that fair to say?
I don't know whether it's arm's length. I don't know whether they've got any arms at the minute, to be honest, City. They just look... I was watching it and I was thinking, De Bruyne is up front, so you're not really going to get that kind of threat in behind. I wasn't entirely sure what Marmoush and Foden were trying to do, but they lacked any sort of getting behind, which just meant that despite United's defence not being the quickest, you could just push up a little bit. And it felt like they were almost sitting in, even from the first half. They were kind of just happy to... I don't know whether it's the nature of kind of Gundogan, De Bruyne and Kovacic just keeping the ball ticking over but not really pushing it further than that, which I think benefited United because we could get on the ball and we could retain the ball.
Yeah, I mean, you said before we come on air that this felt to you like it was the worst City team in sort of recent years. Do you think United should have maybe smelt a bit of blood in that first half? And maybe gone for the kill a little bit?
That's what you're hoping for, aren't you? I think even United teams post Sir Alex, you think of under Ollie, you think of other teams that we've had with Pogba and players like that. We probably would have smelt blood and gone for the throat and kind of put them to bed. But it's felt like a lot of the games this season where, fair enough, you can see some forms of patterns developing. You can see Dorgu getting into decent positions, but we're not clinical enough when we're getting into them areas. And it just feels like we're saying that near enough every week.
Yeah, I mean, it's a theme that we will definitely touch on throughout the show, I think, tonight. JJ says in the comments, City look like a shell of their former selves, so slow. Is that down to the fact that their midfield was, as you say, De Bruyne, Gundogan, Kovacic, 3 players who are sort of coming to the end of their career? My father-in-law's a City fan, and I obviously talk to him quite a lot about City. And his opinion is it feels like this City team needs just a bit of an overhaul, doesn't it? They feel a little bit flat. They don't really feel like free-flowing City. Is that fair? Is that fair? What JJ says, that they felt a bit slow, and like I say, that we could have got them.
Yeah, I think that's been their sticking point really all season. The Rodri injury wasn't supposed to be as dramatic as it has been, but I think it's just shown everyone knew Rodri was a hell of a player before this. But I think this has almost elevated him to the point where he's untouchable. He comes back into that City team and he makes a massive difference. Gundogan, Bernardo, Kovacic, De Bruyne even now, all brilliant on the ball, all great technicians, but fundamentally they can't run. You saw Casemiro today, and I thought he didn't look too bad today.
Mm-hmm,
and you're thinking that he's been the kind of one weakness in our midfield, really. So that just highlights their issues. And I think they're in a similar position where they probably need 4 or 5 players to come in this summer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. So we kind of go on to half time. Should United? Do you think United felt like they'd done well to get in at 0-0? Me looking at that first half, I thought maybe slightly better decision making, maybe slightly better in that final third. That we maybe should have gone in 1-0.
Yeah, I think there's probably an overhang from some of these players knowing that what's gone in the past, that they've played against City and they've been played off the park, they've been hammered. So getting in at that point at half time, it's probably like, well, we're actually not doing too bad here. But from the stands or from wherever people are watching it, you can feel you have to push on in them points. You have to be able to kind of progress the ball and move into better positions. I thought we did that. Obviously, we'll get onto the second half, but it just felt a little bit, we're okay keeping the ball here. We'll just pass it around the back. And it felt like the sun was out. It was a lovely day, and everyone was just kind of, we'll just take this at our own pace, really. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, as JJ says, like City aren't what they used to be. It kind of felt like United were scared to lose, but not wanting to go sort of full on and really push City. Is that fair to say? I felt that through maybe a good hour, I think.
Yeah, that's the thing, and like I say, we've been burnt by City before, even at Old Trafford, and that does linger with players. They're probably still looking at De Bruyne and thinking, if we open up too much, he will pick a pass out. And that could have maybe happened if we'd have opened up even more. They might have picked a gap and gone 2-0 up or whatever it might have been. But it felt like a missed opportunity because you could see the system kind of developing. And I think this has been the case in other games where you can see what Amarin's trying to do. Yeah. But you just need that one little extra step to kind of push it to create more chances to score the goals. But we're kind of reluctant to do it at the minute.
Do you, as a United fan, watch that and want us to open up, or are you, especially against someone like City, as you say, who could sort of carve us apart at will, really, if it worked for them? Are you looking at that thinking, I want us to take the break off, I want us to be a little bit more expansive, or are you happy with us playing that slightly more defensive system?
I think I look at it more so when we're actually on the ball. I don't mind sitting in deep if that's the style that you think is going to work against City, sitting in deep or a mid-block, whatever it might be, and being kind of rigid when you're defending. But I think sometimes when we're going forward, especially when it goes out to the wing backs, we're a little bit ponderous, a little bit slow, where there's a couple of times you could push it down the line, you could get it into Højlund's feet a bit earlier. There's no guarantee that he's going to hold it up. But the idea of just moving the ball a bit quicker, I think that's what United should be about. We talk a lot about Amarin's system and it's not the United way, but the United way should just be moving the ball forward quickly and direct.
Do you think we do that enough? Do you think it's because it is a little bit pedestrian, isn't it? At times, like we get a certain way up the field, and then it feels like they maybe take an extra touch, or it slows down. Is that the quality of the team, or is that the system? What is that? Do you think?
I think it's a little bit of quality, to be honest, because like I just said about Højlund, there's no guarantee that he's going to hold the ball up. So people are probably reluctant to kind of play it into him. I think the centre halves, albeit Mazraoui's quite good in terms of evading presses and stuff like that, but he's not going to push it 20, 25 yards forward. Maguire the same. You see when he tries to do that through the lines, he tends to lose the ball. It's only really Yoro and Martinez who I think look comfortable doing that. So you're then in a situation where your fullbacks don't want to play it into your striker. Your centre half keep playing it to the fullbacks because they can't break the lines. Yeah. And then you see it quite a bit, this kind of horseshoe where they'll go from wing back, centre half, across to the other one. And that's easy to do. You'll get 95% pass accuracy, but you're not actually moving the ball anywhere.
Yeah, you're not causing them any problems, are you? I thought it was fairly obvious what they were doing. I mean, City were narrow. We were trying to hit the wing backs at sort of any given opportunity. Do you think there was enough going through the middle of the park though? It didn't really feel like. I mean, Casemiro and Ugarte were doing quite well defensively, but holding City off quite well defensively. Didn't really feel like much. Doesn't normally, to be fair with both of them, doesn't feel like a huge amount comes through them sort of offensively. Like they're decent at defending, but it doesn't feel like they do too much going forward.
No, I think there probably is a reliance on the wing backs and getting it into them number 10s as quick as you can. I think when Amorim was at Sporting and they played City last time, the one thing I realised is when it gets into the number 10s, they turn around and they're going forward straight away. There's none of this kind of, we're going to keep the ball, which is what we've seen so far. That's the one position, the number 10, that if Ugarte can get the ball and just pass it to Bruno really quickly and he turns and goes, that's fine. But it's when you start slowing it down and expecting him to dribble out of spaces and stuff like that, that's not really their game. And I think, we're seeing that. We need a bespoke number 10 that knows what they're doing in this system.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we will definitely come on to that later on. I think the number 10 position is maybe as important as the striker at this point in the transfer window. So we didn't break them down. You know, we don't tend to break them down. Roy Keane after the match. I mean, I don't know if you watched it on Sky. Him and Neville were having a little bit of a to-do sort of going on at United as they do. Roy Keane says, "You're only as good as your striker." Is that fair? Does that kind of sum United up in a nice little quote there?
I think it is, but I think it's also a bit. There is definitely an element of Højlund's not doing enough up front, but there's also an element of which we were saying last season. He doesn't get enough chances created for him. You look at Haaland since De Bruyne has been out the team, and he's struggled more for chances. He's still scored a lot of goals because he's a good striker and he'll create from certain elements, but he was getting the ball put on his plate constantly. And there's a bit of moving Bruno Fernandes about to kind of get on the ball and create stuff, but that's not necessarily creating the chances directly. So Bruno will come into spaces and he might put a full back in, or he'll give the ball to Garnacho. But fundamentally, that's not creating a chance for Højlund. But on the other side of that, you are only as good as your striker. And Roy Keane's completely valid to say that because he's played with countless strikers who can hold the ball up, can bring other players and can create their own chances, which none of ours can.
Yeah. I think the lack of goals is killing us, isn't it, at the moment? I mean, the Forest game, we'll get onto it in slightly more depth, surely. And the City game today just feels like we're really suffering from that lack of quality going forward. I mean, Bruno today, I actually felt for him. So I thought he had a really good game today, Bruno. I think he got man of the match in the end as well, possibly. Yeah. Everything he was doing, it was just silky. It was nice. He was doing everything he could to try and break those lines. But then, as you say, like the 10 or Højlund were just putting their foot on it and slowing things down. Where would we be without Bruno, do you think? I mean, the last sort of 4, 5, 6 weeks, I think he's upped his game to a real good level. And I think it just shows that the rest of the team, definitely the attacking side of the team, can't get to that level, I think. I mean, and as I say, I feel for him at times. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, where would be? I dread to think you could feasibly say that we're in a relegation battle, which sounds bizarre, but how many points are we off that position, and how many points has Bruno Fernandes won us? He's the shining light in terms of, if we're going to go and win this Europa League, I have no doubts in my mind that Bruno Fernandes plays well on the way to that final. I can't see any way that we get to that final if Bruno's injured or he's not playing well. So it's fundamental to the team, and that's fine. You can have players that are that important. Kevin De Bruyne was that for Man City a couple of years ago. Salah's that for Liverpool at the moment. But you still need a cohesion and players with a certain level, which we're just saying at the minute that, especially in attack, we've just got nothing else apart from Bruno. Yeah,
I agree. As I say, we'll touch on the Forest game, sort of Bruno's role in that as well shortly. Are you happy with the point? As a United fan, I mean, it feels very alien to me to be happy with a 0-0 at home to Man City. I mean, I was saying to Daz earlier, we've played them 3 times in the last year, haven't we? Beat them in the final, beat them at the Etihad, drew them today. I think if you kind of break it down like that, it sounds okay. I mean, they're the champions, but it feels very alien. It feels very strange to me to be happy with the. I wouldn't say negative, because we are kind of what we are, and you take a point. But it feels very alien to me to be okay with a draw. And as I said earlier, like when you kind of smell blood with teams, back in the Fergie years, when we smelt blood, you could see it. They were like, we're having this. It feels strange to be okay with a draw, because that is what we are, sort of thing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's one of them where you look back and you think, City have smashed us a few times. Would you have taken these results at the start of the season? Probably. But given what we know now, given what's happened with City, given the situation of all of them games, you've got to be needing more from United. Like I say, especially in that game today, you think, just open up a little bit and just see what happens. And if you can't do it now, when you've got no hope in the league, we're not going down. We're not going to finish in the European spots. So what are we there to lose? If we lose that game 1 or 2-0, it doesn't matter.
No.
So why not open up? Why not try and express yourself? Why not give the fans something? That's the bit that annoyed me more. And then I think after the game as well, I saw clips of like the players. I saw Bruno hugging Kevin De Bruyne, and I saw players talking to Pep and stuff like that, which it happens. I know it happens, but just do that in the tunnel, out of the way. Like, you don't want to see that in a derby. There just seems to have lost all that kind of bite.
Yeah, I agree. Whether it is a slightly old school thing with me, I don't like them doing that. I don't like them hugging and having a laugh after. Keno said after the game, is it a mentality issue with United that they just don't have that, the sort of go get 'em attitude? Is that what we've got with United? Because Ten Hag was very sort of negative, very defensive, especially in these big games. He doesn't want to lose them, wasn't it? And the majority of this team is obviously Ten Hag's team, with the exception of a few. Do you think it's a mentality issue? Do you think it's a system issue? Do you think they're just not good enough? Or do you think they just don't have that in them to sort of push the button when they need to?
I think it's just knowing what you're trying to do. You look at Forest, a prime example, where you look at their squad and you say, that's not as good as Manchester United's. But their system is so nailed down. And like I said earlier, I don't mind the team defending in a low block if that's better for Harry Maguire or however it might be. But when you're on the break, you have to go, you have to move. And we saw that under Ollie. You could have labelled Ollie as defensive in them big games, because we used to go to the Etihad, we used to sit behind the ball, and then Rashford used to run in behind. But it was effective. We got how many results doing that? So I think it's more so we're kind of stuck in limbo of what are we actually trying to do at this point. And I think Amorim knows what he wants to do. I just don't fully believe these players know what they're wanting.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I mean, talking about Ollie, it is kind of what we used to do, isn't it? We used to catch him on the break, Whether we had better players to do it then, I don't know. I mean, that's up for debate. So Højlund started, and then he brought Xerxes on. Where do you stand on the Højlund and Xerxes thing? I mean, I've made videos on social media about Højlund. Maybe his time's coming to an end. I just saw things in this game today. He holds it up okay. Yeah, he holds it up okay-ish sometimes. But when he's held it up, he's really clumsy in possession, and I feel harsh like having a go at him, but I don't know what he offers. If is that harsh? I don't know.
I think it's valid. I think it's getting worse every week. It feels like. There was one point today, just in the middle of the game, nothing in particular happened, but I said in a video the other day that just watch Højlund for like 5 or 10 minutes in a game when we've got the ball and just watch what he's doing. And there was a point where Garnacho ran down the wing and Højlund was stood literally on the other side of the pitch. Garnacho came back to Bruno and Højlund was still on the other side of the pitch. Yeah. And I was sat there thinking, there's no feasible way that you can get the football here. So he can't complain about chances. He can't throw his hands up at Garnacho or whatever it might be. If you're not going to even bother to go to the other side of the pitch, you're not going to get any chances. And I think he's not even shooting when he gets the ball now. I can't remember the last time he had a shot, which is it's damning for your striker at Manchester United. And I think his days probably are numbered if he keeps going like this.
Do you think they are in the summer? Do you think we'll look to move him on?
It feels a bit early, and I say that only because I think there's too many players to go this season. In terms of there's a lot of 30-year-olds that are going to be leaving, probably 4 or 5 of them. Rashford, Antony potentially leaving. It's going to leave you short if you get rid of Højlund. I think the only way we could do it is if we went out and signed 2 players in attack, and then you can maybe get rid of a Højlund. But it feels maybe 1 year too early.
Yeah, that's fair. Where do you stand on Xerxes? Do you think Xerxes is good enough to fill those shoes?
So the last couple of weeks, I've looked at Xerxes and I've quite enjoyed watching him play, do his nutmegs and all that type of stuff. But I don't know whether that's just because we've got nothing to play for. So I'm just trying to find some excitement in the games. He is good at stuff like that. But next season, hopefully, we're kind of pushing for European positions, whatever that might be. When it comes down to the crux of it, he's not scoring enough goals. He's not getting enough assists. I think, again, he could be in a similar situation next season where people are looking at him and thinking, he's tidy, but he's not putting up any numbers.
Yeah, that's fair. I agree. Kind of brings me on to one of the stories this week. Obviously, it's been a few rumblings that United are quite confident we may sign Liam Delap in the summer. Would you take him as a replacement for Højlund or Xerxes? And do you think that's an upgrade? 40 million possibly is what they're saying is his release clause if Ipswich go down, which they probably will.
Yeah, I've changed my stance on this completely. I think we spoke about this actually probably a couple of months ago, and that was when it had first come about, and I was all of the opinion of, no, he's not good enough, he doesn't close the gap or anything like that. I think I said at the time, if Arsenal go and get an Isak or a Gyökeres and we get Delap, the gap has just got bigger, basically. But I've changed that opinion now because I think he's done a bit more in the last couple of months. I've watched a couple more games and I think he's got all of the attributes really that you want for a £40 million striker. There's no guarantees that he's going to come in and score 20, 30, 40 goals, but I think he definitely comes in and gets 15, which we don't have this season. So I think it's definitely pushing us closer to where we want to be. And there's also, he's got potential to go on and maybe be that kind of, could he become a Harry Kane type player? Probably a bit generous, but you never know.
Yeah, don't compare it to anyone good or anything, just like Harry Kane, that's fine. So what do you see from Delap that you think? Presumably, from what you said there, if we sign him, he will be the starter next season. So what do you see that he would give us that Højlund and Xerxes don't?
I think he's got a little bit more street smart in terms of. I've watched some of his games where he's quite a physical lad, but you could say that about Xerxes and Højlund, that they're both big physical lads. But he's got that body movement where kind of like maybe like a Shearer. I know that's really giddy talking about a Shearer, but what I'm trying to say is just putting your body in the right place so that the defenders can't get it. You see Højlund so many times, he'll get on the other side of the defender and then miraculously they'll get back and get the ball. It feels like an impossible situation to do that. And I think he's also shown an ability to just score various types of goals. I think he's better in the air than them. He scored a couple of like really, really high quality goals. And then he scored them goals where it comes across the front of the box. He runs, he taps it in. So I think he's just shown like a variety. And considering he's playing for an Ipswich, you're expecting his levels to go up if he came to a United.
Do you think he would fit the system well?
That's maybe my one reservation. I don't think he fits it as well as maybe a Gyökeres. I feel like he's not as sharp in the lines in terms of if they're sitting back, is he going to be sharp enough in terms of going around the corners? Probably not. But then do you get to a position where you're relying on crosses into the box? And I think he's quite good at that. So I think he definitely can do a job.
Okay, I agree. I think he looks handy enough for 40 million as well. I think nowadays that's an absolute steal. He will be an English international. As I say, the reports are saying that they're quite confident. But we'll stick with the strikers until we move on. Another one that the reports are saying kind of comes off the back of the Forest game a little bit, where Garnacho was a little bit poor. The press have kind of added two and two together. If Napoli come back in for Garnacho, would you take a swap with Osherman? Obviously, he comes with a little bit of baggage. So obviously hasn't gone great at Napoli. Whether that's wage demands or whether that's in-house stuff. But he scores goals, doesn't he? Would you take him?
Yeah, again, I wouldn't say no, but I feel the reason why I kind of swerved more to Delap in the last couple of weeks or so was I was thinking we actually need quite a lot. I think earlier on in the season, I was kind of under the impression that we only really needed like a striker and a right wing back. I think we need more than that. I think we need a striker, we need a number 10, we need a central midfielder, we need another centre half. I think we need a right wing back. That's a lot of players. And that was why I was thinking, don't go for Osman, because he's probably going to cost you either a Garnacho, which is perceived to be, 60 million, something like that, and go and get a Delap. And then can you get a central midfielder for 20, 30 million? That was my thinking. But if you're just saying as a player, I think Osman suits the system. Is virtually a guarantee in goals. I think he's got a goal every other game, virtually all the way through his career. So that I've got no concerns about that. It's just building the squad.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for me, Osherman would be the striker, but obviously you look at the pot of money, and as you say, we need several positions really to be back up there. Obviously we need a 10 in the summer, in my opinion. But a 10 came back from injury today, Mason Mount. Can he stay fit? And if he does, how important will Mason Mount be? It feels like Amorim likes him.
It does, yeah. I did a video saying that he's got the one benefit that Amorim likes him. I think if Amorim didn't like him, it'd be near enough a guarantee to leave in the summer. But it's just keeping him fit, because we've barely seen him play. I actually can't remember any games that he's played. I know he's played 20-odd games, but I can't pick a game out where I think he's doing... Maybe the Brighton game right at the beginning of the season, I thought he did all right. But barring that, it's and there is a player in there, and there's a player that fits the system. You talk about playing on the half turn and being able to press. That's his number 1 and 2 trait, really. So it's just keeping him fit. But there was rumours, wasn't there, in midweek about him going to like a Danish medical centre or something like that
for 6 months.
But that puts him out for another 6 months. So I don't know.
Yeah,
it's a mad situation.
It's annoying because, as you say, he looks like the ideal 10 that Amorim would want if we can get a run of games out of him. I mean, he looked okay today when he came on. I thought he put himself about quite well. I'd be amazed if he didn't play against Lyon on Thursday, just because I think he gives us that little bit of defensive work up top, gives us that little bit of hustle up top. I just want to see him stay fit. I mean, he had that shot, didn't he, in the second half? And I can't remember who I messaged, but I just said I'd love a Mason Mount winner. It just feels like we need a moment from him, whether that is just to kind of bring him into the United fold a little bit. I think he's only played sort of like, as you say, 20 or 30 games in 2 years. Yeah. We need him fit, don't we? Like Luke Shaw, really. I mean, that feels like another really big player if we can keep him fit. Whether he'll play on the left of the three or whether he'll play on the left wing back, feels like a big player if we can keep him fit.
Yeah, they're both in similar situations where we think they're good players and we know that they can probably add something to the squad, but it's almost annoying that they're not, especially with Luke Shaw, it's annoying that he's not fit, because I think when he is fit, he's probably top 3, top 5 left backs in the world, which is bonkers to say, but he hasn't played for over a year. So how can we sit here as fans and say that? It feels wrong, because I slag off Chelsea fans who say Reece James is one of the best because he's never fit. So it's exactly the same with Luke Shaw.
Yeah, I saw a stat earlier that Bruno has played more games than Luke Shaw has for United, and Luke Shaw's been at United for, I don't know what, 4 years more possibly, something like that. But yeah, it's an amazing stat. I know it's something that splits the fan base. I know quite a lot of United fans think we should get rid of him in the summer because it's a wage. He's never fit. I always just have that thing in the back of my head, if we can get him fit, as you say, on his day, would he play left wing back or would he play left of the three, do you think? I don't know.
I feel like playing him left centre half might benefit him in terms of keeping him fit, to be honest.
Yeah, less work.
It feels like a lot of his injuries are kind of the calf, the leg that he broke, which isn't going to be helped by a lot of sprinting. So if you can kind of put him in that left channel and just say to him, right, do your defensive job, and he's very good on the ball in terms of breaking lines. He's very similar to a Martinez on the ball, where he can break lines, he can pass forward. So maybe that's the place to play him at left centre half.
Yeah. Do you think we'll see him on Thursday? I know the reports are saying Amorim is kind of keeping him for that Europa League game. Do you think we'll see him start on Thursday? I thought he would have got a few minutes today, actually. As he's been out for a while, I thought he might have got a bit today.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think if he was planning to start him, I think he'd have come in and got some minutes today, which, whether he's going to bring him on for, or whether he's going to play him for the first half or start him in the second half, I don't know. But it just feels a bit uncommon for it to not see him and then he comes in and starts a game. I know he did that for England, didn't he, where he sat out and then he basically came in and started the next game. But
the final.
yeah, literally, yeah. I don't know. I think he'll have some part to play, and especially if we go into that home game, the second fixture, and it's close, I think they'll definitely want him fit to be playing that.
Yeah. I think he could be a big player for us. It's just keeping him fit, but staying on the left-hand side against Forest, I thought he was a little bit iffy. Possibly his worst game today. How are we seeing Dorgo at the moment? I thought he started okay. These last few games, I thought we've seen whether it's he's a young lad or whether it's he's come from, whether he's just not at that level yet. It feels like we're seeing him sort of plateau into where he is at the moment.
I think we're probably going to have to get used to that in terms of this isn't a Marcelo or Alphonso Davies that we've signed. It was a 25 million, was it euro or pound?
Yeah.
Kind of, you could say, an unknown player coming from a team that was like near enough bottom of the league.
Yeah.
You can't expect him to come in and be unbelievable. And I think the one thing we've got with him is that he can fall back on his physicality. And I say that quite a bit because today there was no doubt he was quicker, he was stronger than whoever was on the side. That's not necessarily an issue, but it will become more of an issue where he's going around the back and he's crossing it straight into the keeper's hands. Or I think he likes a shot from the edge of the box, which Bruno Fernandes doesn't like that he keeps doing. So either that'll get kind of taught out of him and Bruno will say, look, stop shooting. Or he'll just keep doing it and everyone will get annoyed with it by the end of next season and we'll be saying that it needs to be sold. That feels like the kind of cycle. I think it's more so just a quality issue in terms of he's a young lad, first time in the Premier League. He needs to learn the rhythm and the system.
Yeah, I agree. Whether it is because he started quite well and he looked quite good to start with, then you're seeing him sort of drop off a little bit. As you say, that's something that we may need to get used to. Do you think that's maybe the sort of market we're going to be looking at in the summer? Not necessarily bottom of Serie A, but sort of not cheap, but the sort of plan C and plan D sort of players, because we're not going to be shopping at the top table, are we? And do you think we may need to be a little bit patient with signings?
Yeah, we've just spoken about Delap. I think he'd be exactly the same in terms of he'd be frustrated in certain games. Whoever we get a right wing back, it feels like we're going to get like a copy paste of Dorgu over on that side. Physical, likes to get forward, but not kind of finished product. So I think it's just something we're going to have to get used to. But the one thing I think is that this Premier League isn't that good at the minute. And next season, I don't think it's going to be this high-flying Premier League. So even if we get a couple of players in like that, I still feel like we could jump up to top 4, top 6 quite easily by just being a little bit more consistent. You look at the teams that are in there, Forest, Aston Villa, I still feel like with a couple more players, we're as good as them.
Yeah, I agree. I think if we had even just add a few goals to the team, I think we will rocket up that league. Because you can see, can't you? You can see the system. You can see what he's trying to do. It feels like the players are getting slightly more used to the system now, I think.
Yeah, and I think the only downside is that I think some of the players will probably leave. You're looking at Casemiro. I think Casemiro actually understands the system, probably one of the best out of the squad, but I don't know if he can do it. That's the only thing. I think he knows what he's trying to do. And I think there's quite a clear pattern, which I've seen repeatedly for the last couple of weeks, where it goes into the striker, comes back to a Casemiro, and then it gets switched out to the other side.
Yeah.
And I think that's something like a repeated system that we'll keep seeing. But then it's going out to like a Delors who's making mistakes, or it's getting crossed into a Højlund who's not in the right position. So I think that's the fundamentals, really. It's just the quality.
Do you think Casemiro will go in the summer?
It felt like a guarantee, didn't it, earlier on in the season, that we're just going to try and we'll sell him for a bag of crisps and that's it. We'll just get rid of him. But I don't know whether Amarin's kind of worked out how to play him. I think he said this in an interview the other day, actually. Amarin said, I was trying to get Casemiro to go and press really high and he was getting caught out in behind. Whereas now, you watch Casemiro, he doesn't actually move that much. He stays in a very, very similar position. And maybe he has got a use in the squad because we're forgetting that he's won like an unbelievable amount of trophies. That can only benefit players in and around the changing room.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes. I think the experience is sometimes underappreciated, isn't it? If we lose Ericsson, if we lose, I don't know, even Rashford, there's an experience there. But as you say, the last few weeks, it looks like he's just sitting in front of that back three, doesn't he? And he has got a good ball on him. He is a threat in the corners, free kicks. He is a threat, and he seems to be using him quite a lot. I mean, I'm not sure exactly how old he is, but he's playing every game. He played against Forest. He played today. He played a few on the bounce before the international break. Whether his fitness has got a little bit better, whether Amarin is seeing more that he likes from him. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence with it now. As you said at the beginning of the season, he'd have probably been top of the list for me. He's on a lot of money. Get him out of there. We can use the money elsewhere. I'm kind of on the fence with that now. But staying with the centre of midfield. So we started today with Ugarte and Casemiro. Obviously, Casemiro sits deep, as we've just said. Would you have Bruno next to him, or do you think there's enough with Ugarte next to him? It feels too defensive for me when Ugarte is next to him. Doesn't feel like there's enough going forward. I don't know.
Yeah, it probably feels like that you've only got 3 attackers on the pitch, which you do. So today we only had Bruno, Garnacho and Højlund. The rest of the team is defensive. And that's too much of a swing. You could probably have 6 and 4, or you could have 5 and 5, whatever it might be. That's a bit giddy, but 7 defensive players is quite a lot. And I think if you've got a Ugarte in a team where you've got 2 flying wing backs, you've got 3 players up front who are guaranteed to get you some goals, I don't think there's any issues with Ugarte, because he just cuts around the place, does his job, and he passes it to the better players. I think years ago, say 20 years ago, we'd have loved him. We'd have looked at him almost like a Park Jae-sung. Kind of just goes around, tackles someone and gives it to someone better. But because we're kind of struggling for quality, he's trying to do certain stuff that he's not really adept at doing.
How do you find Ugarte now? I'm sure it was you, beginning of the season or a little bit after. You were very excited about him. You loved him. How do you feel he is now? Now he's kind of bedded in a little bit more. Because he gets brought off quite a lot. He gets substituted quite a lot. Do you think Amarin's seeing him not doing something, or he's not quite working in there, or he doesn't have something in his game?
I don't know. I think I was just really giddy that we'd managed to sign him, to be honest, because I didn't think we were going to get him. And I was probably thinking he was something slightly different to what he is. But in terms of him coming off, I think Amarin at Sporting made the most substitutions of central midfielders or something crazy like that. I'm sure I heard that when he came in. And I think that's just nature of, if you're playing alongside Casemiro, you are doing a lot of running.
Yeah.
Whatever way you like it. And I think you probably don't see it as much in terms of it. Visually, you can't see him sprinting all over the pitch. But there's a lot of kind of side. So maybe it's just a tiredness thing. But I do also think in games like today, Amarin will say at 60 minutes, right, it's 0-0, or we're losing. We need Bruno to get on the ball a little bit deeper. And Ugarte feels like the one that is sacrificing when you think it would be Casemiro. So I'm not entirely sure why he's doing that, but it is happening.
Why do you think that is? Like, I know you just said you don't know, but why do you think all of a sudden Casemiro isn't that one? Whereas he was almost a throwaway player, wasn't he? Sort of 2 or 3 months ago, he was almost like he would have always been a substitution.
It feels like maybe they've had a sit down together, Amarin and Casemiro, as mad as it sounds. And maybe they've just been brutally honest with each other, and Amarin said, look, this is what I want my central midfielder to do. And maybe Casemiro's just sat there and said, look, I can't do that. I can't physically do that. And they've come to this agreement that, look, Casemiro, decent on the ball, he can play first time pass into space, but he can't run to the other side of the pitch. And maybe there's just been like this mutual agreement that this is what you're going to do and this is how we're going to use you. But the agreement might also be that when it gets into the summer, Amarin's going to go and sign another midfielder, and you're probably not going to play that much.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Am I right in thinking that Amarin was a centre mid? Have I just made that up, or am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, he was. I think he was like a kind of number 8-ish.
Yeah.
Of all-rounder.
Yeah. Totally irrelevant comment now. It just sprung to mind. It just sprung to mind. But yeah, I think we're seeing some. I think we're seeing some real positives on Casemiro. I like Casemiro. It just felt like he was kind of fading out a little bit. So I kind of like that he's almost getting a sort of second lease of life sort of thing. But yeah,
he gets it as well, doesn't he, Casemiro? He understands like how to play the crowd and kind of. He'll go mad at people and stuff like that. And I love that side of him. There was one the other week where Delors missed the ball and he kind of just stood there and was staring at Delors. And I was just laughing because I think it's funny, stuff like that. So.
He should be one of the main characters in that team, though, shouldn't he?
Yeah.
With the experience that he's got through playing for Real Madrid, what he's won. He should be one of the voices. I don't know if he's great at English. I'm not too sure. But yeah, I think his experience, is important if we're going to get rid of like Eriksen. Eriksen will definitely leave, I think, now. There's not a huge amount of experience there, I don't think. And I think it's important if we can hold on to that a little bit. So yeah, that's the City game. I mean, it was 0-0. It is what it says on the tin, really. It was pretty shit. So the Forest game. Yeah, the Elanga goal. We have to stop that, don't we? That I mean, however fast Elanga is, I mean, every media outlet under the sun are trying to make out that he had this amazing 85-yard run and he skinned a dozen players, and he's not done anything with that run, has he? Mazraoui's basically held his hand for like 60 yards, done nothing. We have to be bringing him down, don't we?
Yeah. And you're going to get a yellow card, but just sacrifice like
Take
one
it.
of it. Like Garnacho came across at one point and did nothing. Garnacho's an attacker. He could comfortably just go back and trip him, and he'd get through the rest of the game. And like you said, the media are always going to play on it and say, "I knew Elanga he was going to score because it's just written in the stars, isn't it?" But yeah. We talk about like street smart and being kind of clever in certain elements of the game, which we don't seem to have. It felt easy to just clip his ankles, put him down, and you might have even got away with it.
For me, if we do that, we don't lose that game. I don't think Forest did anything in that game, really. So I'm not even sure Onana made another save. I can't think now what he did. But it felt very similar to today. We were playing some really nice stuff. We just couldn't get that. We just couldn't get over the line. It's that cutting edge in the final third, isn't it? It's killing us.
It is, yeah. And it felt like that horseshoe came back into play again, where you're just passing it along the back. And you look great. You retain the ball. Bruno will he'll do a nice pass. He'll do a flick, whatever it might be. But it's just not potent enough. You think back even to when Ronaldo came back, an aging Ronaldo, there was almost like a guarantee that he was going to pop up with a goal at certain times. Which none of if you said to me, do you want to put a bet on that Højlund will score a goal before the end of the season? I wouldn't put that bet on. Like, how crazy is that though? Because if it was Ronaldo, I'd be like, I'll put my house on it, regardless of how old he is. It is just that. Just when a chance falls, just get in there, put it away, and get us back in the game. But we don't have that. Yeah,
I mean, half time here is getting over the excitement of the City game. Let's have a sit down there. It was pretty drab, wasn't it? But as I say, the media will go on about Elanga. United let him go, but then United went on to sign £80 million Anthony. Elanga would not be doing what he's doing at Forest in that United team, would he?
No. And he's been at United. He played 50 odd games for United. It's not as if we've just got this small kind of like data set of 5, 6, 7 games at United. He played 50 games and he played like 30 of them back to back virtually, it felt like. Do you remember when Ranić came in?
Ranić, yeah.
He played him for virtually the end of that season. And he did very little. And that again was probably in a system that should have suited him and didn't. And I think even in this system, he'd have struggled under Ten Hag because he's not technical enough. And I think in this Amorim system, he's probably more likely to be a right wing back than he is an attacking midfielder. And I'm happy for him. I want players from United to go away and do well. I don't want them to score against us, but I don't like this idea of the media constantly saying, "Oh, United should bring him back," or "They shouldn't have let him go." It just feels like an easy way out.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing it a little bit with Rashford, aren't they? That what happened with the last 2 years with Rashford just never happened, and United treated him a little bit shit, and he's now gone to Villa and he's showing us all what he can do. And I'm very similar to you. I have no bad blood at all for Rashford, for Elanga. I'm happy that they're doing well, but it's just not the case. If Rashford was still at United, he would not be doing what he's doing now, would he? He just wouldn't, because he wasn't.
It's such a weird thing to say as well, because you've got evidence that they weren't doing that.
Yeah.
So it's not as if, it's not like saying, "Oh, we should sign Mbappe because he'd come and do it in the Prem." We've actually seen evidence that these football players can't do it at Manchester United, and people just ignore that and say, "Oh, you let him go for nothing." It's bizarre, honestly.
And is it like Bath Time says here? Is it because of how shit our forward line is that it's just a very easy sort of kick in the bollocks that like, oh, Elanga's doing really well, Rashford's doing really well. Imagine what they could do at United if they were there. Xerxes and Højlund are shit. Is it just very easy sort of clickbait, do you think?
Yeah, but there's two different arguments, isn't there? Because if we're saying, is Elanga currently better than Højlund? I know they don't play in the same positions, but is he better than Højlund in the Premier League? Yeah, he is. But should that be kind of the level for United? No, it's not. Danny Welbeck is better than Højlund, better than Xerxes, but he left United, 10.5 years ago, whatever it was. So you can't just keep harping back to this and saying, "Oh, he's better than what you've got, so bring him back." It's the same with McTominay, it's the same with Anthony, it's the same with Rashford, whoever it might be. It's just an easy kind of stick to beat United with.
Where do you stand on this thing that, like, because as you said, Anthony doing very well in Betis. Man of the match performances. Betis are like, I don't know, fourth or whatever. They're doing really well. Where do you stand on this sort of narrative that United is a graveyard for players, and players when they leave just do really well? Where do you stand on that? I mean, Bath Time says in the comments here about McTominay. McTominay was doing really well when he was at United anyway, and I, for one, I love McTominay. I didn't really have that much. I didn't really have that much doubt that he'd do well in the Italian league because Conte is playing him how he wants to be played in a more attacking sense, and he's scoring goals. He's doing well. But yeah, where do you stand on this? That United are this graveyard for players? I mean, there's a certain player playing in London that isn't doing very well, but everyone else seems to be doing really well. Is it United's fault, or is it just the pressure of United, the media pressure, the heaviness of that shirt on their back that some just can't handle?
I think it's nature of the pressure in terms of the Premier League footballers, the very good footballers, very high level footballers. It's just United's just that one step too far for some players. It's like say Michelin star chef. They might not be able to go and work for Gordon Ramsay, but they might be able to have a very, very good restaurant. So it's not the same type of thing. The pressure of playing at United is arguably the second biggest in the world. I think Real Madrid, the pressure is on a monumental scale there, but United's not far behind. And that is a real tangible thing that people just ignore.
Yeah, I agree. Does Anthony come back? Do you think? Just while we're on the Anthony and people that are away type thing, does Anthony come back? 'Cause I think I can't see Rashford coming back. I'll ask you about Rashford as well, but I can't see that happening. But do you see a future for either of them?
I think Rashford will definitely go. I think Anthony might be forced to come back because I don't think Batiste can actually afford to keep him unless he goes back for another year on loan, which might be an option in terms of they cover more of his wages this time and he goes back again. That might be the only way we kind of get out of that situation. Rashford, I think, is a dead cert to go.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I have seen reports that Batiste want him for another year and they're kind of negotiating another year with then an option to buy at the end of it and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it'd be a good, kind of like what Villa are doing with Rashford. Villa are paying like a massively high proportion of his wages, aren't they? If Batiste can do something like that, I think it'd be a good deal because he seems to be enjoying his football. I'm not sure if this came out during the international break about Sancho, but while we're on the loan thing, I think it's possibly bollocks, but there was a story going around that Chelsea are going to look to get out of this deal and pay United 25 million or 5 million or whatever it was to basically have Sancho back.
Yeah.
What would happen, do you think, if Sancho came back? Do you think, because obviously it was Ten Hag, weren't it, that sent Sancho out, would Amorim give him a second chance, do you think? Or do you think that that ship's very much sailed and Ineos would just want to find somewhere else?
I think he'd be, regardless of what Amorim wants to do, I think he'd be advised, let's say, from above that Sancho can never come back into the squad just by what he said, what he's done, how he's approached the situation. I just don't think it'd happen. I feel like he might end up going back to Dortmund yet again. I think that was rumoured in terms of if he comes back, that's where he'll end up going. But yeah, it's just a mad situation. But I don't think there's any fans that are looking at it and saying we want Sancho back in the squad. I think it brings us nothing.
Yeah, it's karma, isn't it? Really, I think it's like a couple of weeks after he said freedom.
Yeah,
and now Chelsea don't want him, but yeah, I think he will end up at Chelsea. Really, I think it was just people being bored during the international break. Really, but going back to the Forest game, something that kind of rang alarm bells for me a little bit. I thought Forest did it really well. They had Ryan Yates on Bruno, so Bruno had a very, very quiet game because Yates man marked him, and it made me think if Bruno doesn't do anything, United are we have problems, don't we? Because no one else will do it. Like today, Bruno, I thought played really well. Just nothing really come off, as we said earlier in the show. He was trying all these bits, but nothing really come off. At Forest, he was man marked, and I think it killed us because there's no real creation, is there? There's nothing really. Like we got Garnacho on the left. We'll talk about him in a moment, but he's a very frustrating figure at times. No play really comes from anywhere else, but Bruno does it. I mean, are we a bit of a one-man team? I don't know. Is that a bit far-fetched to say that?
It feels that way, doesn't it? I mean, that, like I say, that number 10 position is probably the most important in the team in terms of if you've got a player who's not very good in that position, you're gonna struggle creating any chances because they're the link for the whole team. Teams don't do that as much as I thought they would do in terms of just putting someone on Bruno Fernandes because it seems so obvious that we're so reliant on him. But teams actually don't do it. I don't know whether it's good movement from Bruno in terms of he draws them out or whether it's just something they don't really think about. You want to be in a position where that other number 10 is at a similar level to what Bruno is. So ideally, my dream number 10, which is never going to happen, would be Musiala from Bayern. It's never, ever going to happen. But in terms of if you add him and Bruno Fernandes in them positions, who does the midfielder go and mark at that point?
Yeah.
Because they can swap over, they can go in behind, they can do this and that. but we've only got one, so it's so easy to shut that down. And it, like you say, basically a one-man team.
So Musiala would be great. I'd take him all day long in the summer. As you say, it may be slightly tricky. Who would be the 10 that you'd buy this summer, if you could? If it's not a realistic 10.
We're going to see one next week for Leon. And I guarantee next week, I guarantee next week there'll be rumours coming out saying United are talking to Leon about the signature, because he's got kind of an arrogance in terms of he's got a bit of swagger. He knows he's a good football player. The only thing with him, I think Amorim might be a bit put off by his work rate. He looks like the type where maybe like who could we liken him to? Someone who doesn't work very hard in that position, but he'll get it. Undoubtedly, he'd be dangerous in this team, more dangerous than a Garnacho. And then elsewhere, I think there is a lot of options, but they're all kind of different styles in terms of, say, Diblin, who would be a bit more of a dribbler, progresses the ball a bit more, but not going to get you the numbers. And then, like I said, there's Wirtz and Musiala and players like that, but we've got no chance of getting them.
Would you go for Cunha at Wolves?
Yeah, I've been a bit off-put by him, actually, over the last couple of weeks. I think when he got did he get sent off a couple of weeks ago, and I thought he just...
The attitude.
Yeah, just a little bit on the wrong side. I don't mind a bit of an idiot who's going to go out and boot someone, because Eric Cantona was that, wasn't he? And we loved him anyway. But I just think there's a line that is probably crossed over the last couple of weeks. In terms of ability, though, I think hands down he comes into this team and he makes a massive difference. Yeah,
that's fair. I'm going to throw another name at you. I speak to Daz quite a lot. He thinks Brian Mbeumo from Brentford. Would you take him?
When we say would you take him, I'd take any player at the minute for the attack. So it's does he do what we'd want him to do? I don't think he's clever enough in the half spaces in terms of, I think he's a good runner, he's good working with another striker in terms of running off him, but I don't think he's good enough in terms of going in and getting the ball. Maybe I haven't watched him enough, maybe he's good at doing that, but it feels like he's probably not suited for that role. Yeah,
I agree. I agree. I see him as more of a winger, me personally.
Yeah,
maybe not more centrally. But we'll concentrate on the 10 that we have got. Garnacho. I thought he played okay today, to be honest. I thought he ran out of steam a little bit in the second half, but I thought he played quite well in the first half. The Forest game, he took quite a lot of flack from the fans, the media afterwards, just because he was doing that bloody thing that he does all the time. He was just shooting all the time. Decision making was quite poor. There's this thing in the air, isn't there, that Mainu is struggling with his contract. We may sell Mainu, we may sell Garnacho. Would you be okay if we sold Garnacho?
I think when Amorim came in, I said absolutely not. I don't want him to go. Academy is kind of the bread and butter of United and all that type of stuff. But the longer it goes on, it fundamentally he's not a Manchester lad who was brought through the academy in that way. He was bought at a young age. So I'd probably get over it if he left. I just feel like there is a footballer in there. And I know it's frustrating, but I think there's something about having that relentlessness to kind of shoot. And it's getting to the point where it is really annoying, especially against Forest. That was all I saw after the game was he's had, I don't actually know how many shots he had, but
it was a lot.
Like a hell of a lot, which is annoying, isn't it? But then on the other side of that, if you come out of that game and you win 2-1, I don't think anyone really questions it, to be honest. I think in a good functioning team, Garnacho is a good player.
Yeah, I mean, whether it is just he needs to sort of hone his sort of accuracy a little bit more. I can't remember the last time he scored one of those shots that he tries. It would be my sort of annoying thing. That I can't remember the last time he bent one into the top corner. But as you say, when you marry that up with the striker not doing much, the other number 10, maybe Xerxes, not doing much, maybe it makes it a slightly worse than it actually is. But we'll stick with transfers. We'll stick with rumours. Bruno Fernandes. I know Daz is watching. Daz has an opinion on this, as he does on most things. Bruno Fernandes to Real Madrid, £90 million.
Can I guess what Daz has said about this?
Well, give us your opinion first, and then we can see how close you are to what Daz thinks. Would you say Real Madrid? Yeah, thanks very much, Bruno. Off you go, or would you say no? We don't want that.
There's a lot of different angles, because I think if you said you could get 90 million for a 30, is he 31 next season, Bruno?
Yeah.
If you could get 90 million for a 31-year-old, that is a hell of a deal to get, regardless of how good he is. But then on the other side, I just feel like it deflate the whole club almost. I feel like just run Bruno until he's retired, basically now. Can you imagine going out and signing a few different players, and you go and sign, even if you went and signed an Osimhen and you went and got a Frimpong at right back, that's really exciting, but you sold Bruno Fernandes. It would just feel like a massive deflating going into next season. And I knew that's what Daz would say.
Yeah, so for me, I think Bruno is probably the only unsellable player that we have, because I don't think you replace what Bruno does. Yeah, as you say, he's 30 years old. 90 million for a 30-year-old would be amazing in today's market. I don't think there's anyone in world football that would come into the United team that we have right now. I mean, people comparing to Odegaard and people like that. Odegaard does not do for United what Bruno does for United in this United team. No way. I mean, I'm open to people in the chat, you yourself, telling me players who will do what Bruno does for this United team. I don't think there is anyone out there. I really don't.
I don't think there's anyone that does it for any team. I think you could have said 2 years ago Kevin De Bruyne.
Yeah.
He's not doing it. He's got no hamstrings left. I think the other players, like we've mentioned, like Wirtz, Musiala, very, very good high-level footballers, but they're not on Bruno Fernandes' level. And then you look at, say, like a Bellingham and players like that. Bruno goes into that Real Madrid team and he upends Bellingham. I have no doubts about that. The other side of it is what Daz has just said. If he did leave, and Bruno, no doubt Bruno would come out and say, I don't want to leave, blah, 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 all that type of stuff. But I think he could go there and he actually could challenge for the Ballon d'Or, because I think he'd get like 50 assists, probably 40.
I agree. I agree. I think I don't think there's many better in world football. I really don't. And I think he only gets disrespected because how shit United are. I don't think people look past that. Like, if you put him in that City team, I think he does what De Bruyne does. I really do. Yeah. What do you make of this comment? And Mbeumo and Cunha are already creating the same and out XGing him.
I don't know what the stats are in terms of goals, assists, expected goals, all that type of stuff, but it's not the same. This United team is so lacking in so many departments, and Bruno has so many jobs. Them two, I keep going back to this analogy of chefs, so I'm gonna stick with it. Them two are just making the starters, whereas Bruno's making all three courses. He's running, he's tackling, he's doing this, but then he's also creating chances which aren't being finished. So that, I don't think comparing them is even a conversation.
Yeah, I agree. It's very similar to what I've said to Daz. I mean, today, just outside our area, Bruno was sliding in, putting a tackle in. Seconds later, he's in the fucking centre circle, trying to spray the ball out to the wings. He does everything, literally everything. And the only thing he doesn't do is put the goalkeeper gloves on and get between the sticks. He's amazing. I think he'll go down as a legend for United. I really do. That's an interesting question, actually. Would you have him as a United legend if he was to leave this summer? How would you feel, firstly? And secondly, would you have him in that sort of legend category? I know we haven't won the league and the sort of big honours, but he's been amazing, hasn't he, so far?
Yeah, I'd be devastated if he was to leave. I think, like I say, it would just deflate the whole club, and you could go and sign anyone you want. I think it'd be a massive loss all around. And then in terms of being a legend, I think he is for what he's done post Sir Alex, because you look at it and you say, my internet's just going off. Am I still here?
Yeah, I can still see you.
My internet just went off. Yeah, I think he definitely gets some sort of memorial at the new ground. Maybe not a massive statue, but the best post Sir Alex, without a doubt.
Does he get into a Sir Alex team into the best sort of the 99 team, the what was it, 05 or 08 or whatever that was? Does he get into those best teams?
Ooh.
Or would he be a bench player? It is a tricky question.
So difficult. I mean, system-wise, he don't get in there them teams because I don't think they played with a number 10 necessarily. And I think the teams where we did play with a 10 with like a Cantona in there, it doesn't upend Cantona for me. He's on the bench, definitely. We'll say that.
Yeah, I'd agree. To be fair, I'd agree. But even that, to be fair, even that saying he's on the bench, I don't think he's any mean feat, to be honest.
Yeah,
he's quality, and I would definitely not sell him. So Daz, you need to change that one. So yeah, that's the Forest game. That's the City game. Excuse me. We look forward to Thursday in the Europa League, away in France. Where do you sit on this, Ben? What's a good result here? Don't get beat. Can we beat them over 2 legs?
Yeah, I think don't get beat. Bring them back to Old Trafford. It's getting to that point where a big game at Old Trafford under the lights, that's kind of a deciding factor for me. It's going to be a different proposition to the previous games because these are a little bit more physical. They've got a little bit more magic in the team. So if you are lax and you're not playing as well as we can, they'll open us up. But yeah, I feel fairly confident. I feel like we're going to raise our levels and kind of progress.
Do you think that's what the players will be up for now? Because it was a little bit flat, wasn't it, today's game? Do you think that is because the season feels like it's gone now for the players and Thursday is it's what we're fighting for now, isn't it? I suppose Europa League. Do you think the players will show that?
Yeah, and I think that's probably natural, isn't it? Because if you think, I could go into this tackle in the Manchester derby, or I could stay fit for Thursday to kind of progress in a European competition. And no one wants to hear that, but that is an actual thing that goes through people's minds. I mean, I've even done it on a Saturday league where you think we've got a big game coming up. I'm going to take it a little bit easier, or I'm going to do this and this. I think it's just nature of it. Probably not the best mentality, but you do see it.
Can we win the Europa League?
Yeah, I think this will be our toughest test. I think.
Right.
Just style wise and just physicality wise. I don't know how the next rounds are laid out and who we could face, but I think Athletic are still in it. Spurs are still in it, aren't they? Which probably
Bilbao or Rangers the next one.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, they feel like the biggest tests after this. But I feel confident that we're going to go through.
So you think we'll be all right with them over 2 legs?
Yeah. I feel like I've got a suspicion that we might come back to Old Trafford maybe 1-0 down, something like that.
Yeah.
But from that, I think under the lights, it makes a big difference.
How would you set us up? Would you bring Shaw in? Would you play Mount? Would you have Hoyland up top? How would you do it?
I'd possibly, away from home, I'd probably go with Xerxes and Mount and leave Hoyland out, or bring him on later on. And then when you're at home, I'd probably go with Bruno a little bit deeper alongside Inagate, and then you've got Mount, Xerxes behind a Hoyland, and I think you look a lot more kind of impactful when you're going for that.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think I would happily go with that. So we're beating Leon, is what I'm taking from that.
Yeah.
Next Sunday's game away at Newcastle. Give me a quick prediction.
Dread. I feel like they're the worst team we can play at the minute for some reason. Newcastle. I just feel the physical through the middle, the quick
away as well.
Yeah, and they're all up for it, aren't they? They're just full of it at the minute. So, and for some reason, they've created this rivalry with United fans and United in general. Not sure where that's come from, but they're always up for it when they play us. So, to be honest, I could see us getting beat 2-3-1, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, they did us quite comfortably, didn't they, at Old Trafford? I mean, what was that? Yeah. Was that 2-0 or 3-0 or something?
It was 3, wasn't it? I think. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a Xerxes game, wasn't it, where he got booed off or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bad Xerxes one, wasn't it? So yeah, we're beating Leon and Newcastle. You know, maybe not a great watch. I think we taken from that prediction.
Don't forget about that one.
Hopefully you're wrong and we get a result. But they look up for it at the moment after winning the League Cup. They look like they're pushing for Europe themselves in the league. So it will be a tricky game. It's always tricky, I think, going to St James's Park.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I think that does it for us, bud. I think we'll take it there. Where can everyone find you on social media?
Just over on TikTok. Yeah, I think that's my name, Ben Wilson 217. Ben on football, I think is my name. Yeah, just on there every day.
Yeah, it's good content. If you don't follow Ben on there, go and give him a follow. It is quality stuff. I'll be back next week after Leon, obviously. Excuse me, after Leon, after Newcastle. Hopefully, some goals is what I want. Goals. I can't remember the last show I did where we scored a goal. It makes it a bit easier if we score a few goals. So if we can get some goals, that'd be nice. But yeah, I'll see you next weekend. Naz will hopefully have sorted his charger out and he'll be back next weekend. Yeah, cheers, Ben. I always appreciate having you on, bud.
All right.
Take it easy, pal, and I'll get you on next time. And everyone that's watching, appreciate it. Have a lovely week, and I will catch you next Sunday. Take it easy.